Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Welcome to the DraftKings Superbowl Showdown first look. We've had 2 weeks off. We had a week to kind of do some other things. Now we got, 6 days before the big game. So I'm excited of this fantastic match between the Kansas City Chiefs and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay, the only team that was left in the Final Four that had a top 10. Actually, they were in the top 5 in terms of defensive DVOA. We've seen these two teams play already this year, and we know what happened in that one. Tyreek Hill posted about 400 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns in the first quarter. Don't fact check me. I might be exaggerating there. But he basically just tore them a new one. And the Buccaneers coaching staff is saying it's not Carlton Davis' fault. It was a complete defensive breakdown. It's like, I'm not here to point fingers at anybody either, but like, we saw them go nuclear against this excellent Tampa Bay defense before. And Tampa Bay has a couple of things, and we're going to talk about them, that that's made them really good, but also play right into the hands of what the Chiefs do well. So an exciting game. I said before that I was going to be happy about this Super Bowl no matter which combination of those 4 teams that were left in the conference championships made it here. Kind of feel like Kansas City's going to win this one. We'll see how it shakes out, but I'm just hoping for a lot of points scored, some exciting football, and a competitive game. So you guys would be so kind, as you have been all season long, to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell, leave a reply, click the things, somebody who's first in the comments write first, and then somebody else reply to that one with second, and third and fourth, and just go on with that forever. That'd be greatly appreciated. Let's take a look at this single game showdown right here. So the first thing that's going to pop out is the extreme prices of Patrick Mahomes and Travis KELCE. So Mahomes at captain at 1,800, one of the unicorn quarterbacks, but we didn't see very many unicorn days from him this season with as good as he has been the entire year, right? So like 2 games over 35 points. The rushing ability is not, he can run, but he's not a running quarterback. Mahomes, for him to have one of those 40-point days on DraftKings, has to throw for like 4 or 5 touchdowns and get you 350 plus yards. Last year in the Super Bowl, one where they had to come from behind to beat San Francisco, he put up like 286 and 2 touchdowns. Against a very tough defense, and this Buccaneers defense also very tough. But the thing that I was going to tell you about what the Buccaneers do that kind of plays right into Kansas City's hands, the Buccaneers, since that game, what week was it? Week 12, right? Where he threw for 3 touchdowns, 462, 35 DraftKings points against this same Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. Since that game, weeks 13 through now, the Buccaneers have applied more pressure to opposing quarterbacks and have blitzed more than any other team in the league. Conversely, the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes are ridiculous in terms of efficiency when blitzed. So the thing that's making the Buccaneers so great is their ability to put pressure on the opposing passer, but Mahomes is so good and Andy Reid's play calling is so great, and the supporting cast that Mahomes has is so ridiculously complimentary and solid, and they're all completely on the same page with one another, that blitzing Mahomes could be a death sentence. But we'll see how that goes. So let's talk about a couple of other plays in this game. We know what Tyreek Hill did against them, as I said. You can quote me on that. He had something, like I said, 60.9 DraftKings points, roughly 782 yards and 17 touchdowns. So I was right about in the right neighborhood in terms of Tyreek Hill against Tampa Bay. The last time they played, I'm not predicting he's going to get that this game, because that would be absurd. It was one of the best fantasy games of all time. Travis KELCE, one of my favorite players on this slate, and Travis KELCE has been one of my favorite players throughout the playoffs. As you guys have paid attention to the content, I assume, that I've put out so far during the playoffs, when there were multiple game slates, I've been prioritizing Travis KELCE as a flex play, or opening up tight end to allow Travis KELCE to be the only tight end I would use in flex. So if I was going to go to tight end, it was only going to be Travis KELCE, and he's had just this ridiculous tear since week 7 in Denver. Was the last time he did not post ridiculous numbers, right? Big playability with 20 plus yard gains in every game but 2 since week 7. 100 yards in every game except 3 since week 7. I think Travis KELCE at the price that he's at, obviously Tyreek Hill can tear the roof off of a game, but so can Travis KELCE. Big time ceiling possibility and even a higher floor than Tyreek Hill. And knowing that Tyreek Hill has seen 10 plus targets more than he has in previous seasons as well gives him a boosted floor. I think Travis KELCE is probably my favorite captain on this Super Bowl slate. But we'll talk about the ways that we go about doing things for Showdown specifically, because Showdown is a game that is very much about correlating your lineups. We have an entire video on how to beat single game Showdown. It's the final one of the year. It's in the How to Win on DraftKings playlist. Go check that out and see if you've never played Showdown before, but you're going to play it for the Super Bowl for the first time. Go watch that video first. It'll explain a lot of things and why, but this is how we're going to go through this. So if you're going to play Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, you need to build groups, whether you're building groups with a pen and a paper, or if you're using something like Fantasy Labs, which is something we'll get into in just a little bit, where you're going to use a lineup builder and projections and everything else. You need to build groups to be able to do this, or at least build rules that will enable you to do these things. So if we're going to have Patrick Mahomes as our captain, I'm going to build groups with Kansas City. The first group is going to be including at least 2 of all the pass catchers on the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm going to include Hardman in that group. I'm not going to include the running backs because the Chiefs don't really use the running backs all that much. We'll include Pringle. We'll include Robinson. Probably not going to include Dita. We will not be going to Sprockets. This is not the time on Sprockets Van Vidance. But anybody that you think is a realistic pass catcher, I will also be including the kicker in that group, because kicker is more correlated with the quarterback than people are willing to let on, and it's a source of fantasy or of salary relief, but does not have the upside of somebody like Robinson or Hardman, where they can score a 60-yard touchdown and blow out value in one play, where the kicker is going to have to kick 6 field goals or 5 field goals to make him super viable. But every point matters in terms of single game Showdown. I'll also be building a bring back group with basically every player on Tampa Bay, including the quarterback, every offensive player. Mike Evans, it's got that Q by his name. They said if the game was last weekend, he would not have had a tag, but he didn't practice Friday, so they had to put it on him. So I'm assuming that he's going to be completely all right. Antonio Brown's a different situation where he may not be able to play in the Super Bowl, and if he does not play, we know that the biggest beneficiary, there's 2, but I think that there's one that's a little bit more suited than the other one. The one, if Antonio Brown doesn't play, Scotty Miller has averaged like 11 points per game in the games where Antonio Brown didn't play, and like 3 fantasy points per game in the games where Antonio Brown did play. Also, you get a little bit of a bump at 1,200 for Tyler Johnson. But neither one are going to see a lot of targets. Scotty Miller is the one that sees more snaps and runs more routes when AB is not there. So assuming AB is out, we'll work with that. And if he's in, you guys adjust. I'll be building that bring back group around Evans and Fournette and Cam Brate, who has essentially run as many routes and gotten as many targets as Rob Gronkowski has over like the last 6-7 weeks. They're somewhat equal. Brate is priced higher at 4,800 than Gronk at 3,000. Gronk is going to be extremely popular, I believe, in this game mode because he's Gronk and it's the Super Bowl and narratives and people know the name, and it's a $5.5 million prize pool and everybody's going to play it. Regulars, casuals, sharks, minnows, whatever else you want to see out there in guppies. So I think that Gronk is going to have a much higher percent played than somebody like Cam Brate, but Brate is probably the more right play. And Miller as well if Antonio Brown is out. And then you're going to include at least one of those players in your Mahomes lineups. Same thing with Brady, conversely to Mahomes. Now, the second thing that we have to do, if we're going to include Chris Godwin at captain, every wide receiver or pass catcher group with the Buccaneers has to be tied to Tom Brady, in my opinion, for correlation purposes. And that doesn't matter if it's going to be Godwin. It doesn't matter if it's going to be Evans. I'm probably not going to include Leonard Fournette. Okay, when I say that, if Leonard Fournette is my captain, I'm not going to make sure that Tom Brady is going. I'm not going to make a rule that says if Fournette captain, then Tom Brady must be in the lineup with Fournette as captain. But as you can see, Fournette has really taken over the pass game duties for the last month and a half, especially the last 2 games with 13 targets over the last 2 games. He does correlate a lot better with Tom Brady than Ronald Jones does. I won't disallow Brady to be in lineups with Fournette, but I'm not going to force Tom Brady into lineups with Fournette at captain. Although if I make lineups with Ronald Jones as the captain, right, who is, massive downtick in terms of his rush percentage, his snap percentage, and getting no usage in the passing game. If you think that Ronald Jones Jr. is going to break off a long touchdown in this one and be a viable captain for 3,300, I'm probably going to disallow Tom Brady in those lineups because he won't correlate very well with that. If that's the case, then it's just not the way that I want to go. The last group that I'm going to build with this is going to be that kicker and defense group, where basically, not at captain, please, where I'm going to build this. And you do have to signify whether you're going to use these guys at captain, especially if you're using a lineup builder. I'm not going to allow more than one of these 4 players to be in any one of my lineups. Now, if you're hand building, you're like, well, I don't need this information. You do need to be thinking this way in terms of how you're building lineups for Showdown. But yes, it is single game. If you want to differentiate, you can leave more money on the table. You can break any one of these rules because it is a single game situation and variance is extremely involved in a single game situation. But let's go over to Fantasy Labs. Like, anything can happen. So yes, there will be games where a kicker will be a viable captain, but just go watch that video. You'll see exactly what % of the time for every showdown ever those things have happened. It's extremely unlikely, but if it does happen, you give yourself a unique chance to win. So going over to Fantasy Labs, you can see we're over here and I've got my template set for Showdown. I've already uploaded it here. I don't allow kicker or defense at captain. If you want to, go ahead. The people that have defense at captain are going to show up really high once the game starts. And then as the game goes, as long as there's not a defense that scores 2 touchdowns or a kick return for a touchdown and a defensive touchdown, defensive teams do not typically win Showdown. Defense and captain teams typically do not win Showdown. You want to have the highest scoring player in the game be in your captain spot more often than not, unless it's a Richie James situation, unless it's a defense that scores 26 fantasy points with that 1.5x. So I try and isolate to having these positions be my captains, and I limit my quarterbacks to maybe 15 total %, but I might change that for this week with the quarterbacks that we have going. More than likely, I will allow more than 7 or 8% for Mahomes, but not more than 7 or 8% if I make 150 lineups for Tom Brady. Looking at those rules that I was talking about, pair your captain quarterback with at least 2 wide receiver, tight end, and kickers from the same team. Pair your captain quarterback with at least 1 quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end from the opponent. Pair your captain wide receiver with exactly 1 quarterback from the same team. If it's a captain tight end, pair him with 1 quarterback from the same team, and limit at most 1 defense and kicker from the same game. You can add more rules. You go over to player correlations and you can add those rules I was talking about with the running backs. Like if Ronald Jones is your captain, then do not include Tom Brady in that lineup, and probably use more Chiefs players, because if Ronald Jones is ripping off yardage in chunks and scoring touchdowns, that probably means that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are winning that game, and you're going to see more passing attempts from the other side. So build those rules and player correlations and groups to talk about the story that you want to tell. So we're going to save our settings. We're going to come over here. We're going to tell the lineup builder on Fantasy Labs to build 150 lineups. And as we click generate, I have not limited the quarterbacks yet. So we're probably going to end up with more Patrick Mahomes at captain than I want. Very easy to just go over here to the min max columns and max him at 8%. As right now you can see we got 33% of your lineups with him. I have not done even scratch the surface of the amount of work that I'm going to do on this optimizer before I'm ready to click submit. I always use that disclaimer. Do not think that if you sign up for Fantasy Labs, you're just going to go over, run to the optimizer, use their vanilla projections, and just come out with a winner. That's not the way this works. That is just the most efficient way to lose money. You have to spend time building the lineups that you want to make sure that the tool is going to spit out the lineups that you want with the correlations that you want with the percentages of players that you're looking for throughout your lineups. The more work you put in, the more benefit that you're going to get out. And I wish you the best of luck this Saturday. We'll be back with more videos this week for player props and football drafts and everything else. So I hope you enjoyed this football season. Got a whole lot of content planned for the off season. So look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.